thank you for joining us all tonight. We've got a pretty awesome lineup. So tonight we're going to talk about winter swimming. Now, Matt's just done a great introduction to all of us, but just to add a little bit, so tonight on the call you've got 3 qualified outdoor swim coaches. So not only do we all swim year round, we also help lots of other people to go and swim outside. Now, what we're going to try and do a little bit tonight is educate people, because I know there'll be people on this session who haven't swum outside during winter, or maybe want to push themselves a little bit more. And what Gilly, Fenwick and I are really conscious of is that certainly these two, not so much me, post some amazing, beautiful, stunning pictures of them ourselves in remote, quite extreme environments. And we're always conscious of the impression and the influence we have on other people, and people potentially copying what we do. But what you don't see in those beautiful shots of Fen sat next to his ice hole with his axe and Gilly emerging out of some amazing icy water is all the other stuff that goes on in the background, all the prep, all the maybe the support crew that we've got with us, all that kind of thing. So we want to talk about all of it. We're going to have a bit of an entertaining chat about the do's and don'ts and why we swim and what we get out of it. But we also want to give you an opportunity to learn something tonight. So we are going to cover why we swim outside over winter, safe swimming, how to do it, what kit we use and why we use it. So kit always comes up as a big topic whenever I talk about outdoor swimming. People want to know what I use, why I use it, and you can go from having nothing to a massive kit list. Any outdoor person likes a good bit of kit, but there's specific stuff that we all use individually that's very special to us. We're going to have a specific section just on ice swimming, because of course not everybody gets to swim in ice. I know where I am down in the peaks, we don't get icy conditions every winter. We were really fortunate. The last winter was very cold. I got some really, really decent couple of weeks probably of ice dipping in. Gilly and Fenwick further north, because Gilly's got access to the Lake District. She's got the high tarns that she can get up to where there is ice all year. Fenwick, his beautiful lake that he runs a swim venue at, is very shallow and freezes really well over winter. But to be honest, everywhere south of that, you don't really get ice. But we're going to have a little bit of an extra chat about that. And then hopefully we will have time for some questions at the end. So Matt's already said, pop them in the chat for us. They're going to keep an eye on what's coming in. We've already had a bit of a think and a talk about what questions we're likely to get, but it's always nice to get some surprises in. So before we get started, each of us are going to have a little bit of a chat about why we swim outdoors over winter. So I'm going to start. So I started a number of years swimming outdoors. In the summer, went with a few mates, absolutely fell in love after somebody said, why don't you try outdoor swimming? And I turned around and went, don't be stupid, it's really cold. By the following summer, I was completely addicted. And then there followed the gradual descent into winter, and I just carried on going through. My winter swimming down here in the peak involves cold water dipping just in my swimming costume, but I also swim a little bit of distance over winter, not serious distance, it might be 20 minutes, but I layer up with a ton of neoprene. I'll show you it in a little bit, a beautiful neoprene balaclava, 2 pairs of gloves, 2 pairs of socks, and a thick old wetsuit. Now the other guys don't do that so much, but I'll let you talk about that in a minute. So why do I swim through winter? It gives me an enormous sense of achievement. There's an amazing kind of electric zing to getting in that cold water. It brings people together. So I go with friends, and it's just a huge, in the depths of winter when you're really, really dark and grey and a bit grumpy, it can turn me from the moodiest of grumpy winter slumps to just an alive person again. I'm a better person for swimming through the winter. That's why I do it. So I'm going to start with Fenwick first. How do you swim through winter? Why do you swim through winter, and what do you get from it?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks very much for getting this together. It's pretty awesome, and like Suzie is saying, it's quite nice to kind of deliver a nice message and also to encourage people with the right head on their shoulders and that. But yeah, anyway, for me, well, I'm up in Northumberland, and yeah, like Suzie was saying, we've got a beautiful lake venue. It's we're very, very, very lucky of where it is. It's nice and high up and shallow, so it becomes a bit of a beast. Me, when it comes down to well, first off, I mean, I started off as a marathon swimmer, so my first sort of injection into outdoor swimming was my old coach said to me after a 10K swim in the pool, he says, "You need to go to open water." And I was doing about 2.5 hours in the pool, and then in the open water I managed to get to 2 hours 17, which for the 10K. And then after miles and miles and miles, there was one season that came towards the end, and it got cold, and I just wanted to extend my season, and it ended up being more than that. I ended up getting way more involved with the temperature drop, and of course the addiction came into the ice and the adventure. So for me, it's as well as it being about the adventure and the thrill and the buzz of going into the ice and going to lower temperatures, it actually has a big impact for me for anxiety, and I use it as a repair tool many years ago, when I wasn't very well. I came back from Africa with something unknown, and I think it was Japanese encephalitis that I had, but there was something else. And anyway, after a few seasons of winter, I actually found quite a bit of fix from my problems. And yeah, for me, it's just a very deep sort of love for the winter. I used to love the winter anyway. I used to love the snow, the freeze, getting all wrapped up and everything. But I just love this like whole sort of ritual of setting my gear up, making plans to go off and do a certain trek. It's just beautiful. And that's just the outside part of the water. And there's so much more when it comes into going into the colder water for me. So I'm actually doing a long distance ice swimming now, up to 2.8K so far, under a degree. So I found where I am with my swimming, and that is the winter. So yeah, it's just it's something that I would love to like Suzie was saying. I'm a coach, and I deliver coached sessions and introductions to winter swimming with my business H2O Trails. So yeah, very, very lucky. Oh, that's some good pictures.
Gilly, same to you. It's your turn.
Gilly.
I just realised we'd also forgotten to add in. Gilly's also a climber, so very, very experienced outdoors person. Hence your picture up on the hill that pops up there. And there are some crossovers, aren't there, a little bit in your cross adaptation, I think, with the swimming and the climbing.
Yeah, so I thank you for inviting me here tonight. Yeah, so a quick introduction. I moved to the Lake District a couple of years ago to basically do more climbing, and then got into the open water swimming as a result of the fact that it just rains here quite a lot, so you can't really do much climbing all year round. I run a big rock climbing festival, which is about really promoting inclusivity in the outdoors. And so the way that I have entered the sort of swimming and then cold water swimming world is not dissimilar to a lot of people. It's like you swim through summer and you quite enjoy it, and then as the temperatures drop, you get into it a little bit more. My first season of winter swimming was very much definitely just dipping, learning, Googling stuff, learning, about hypothermia, finding out if I was going to die if I stayed in the water for more than 3 minutes and all that kind of stuff. But as each of the winters has gone on now, and each season's gone on, I've just learned more and more and more about the power of the cold, and why I'm really interested in meditation and mindfulness meditation. And I'm really interested in neuroscience as a very lay person. So the reason that I swim is for the cold and that cold connection. And I also swim for that connection to nature and watching the seasons unfold. And the third reason is just that connection to other people and to the communities. And the reason that I swim far, far more in the winter than in the summer. And my real passion is finding ice and finding those tarns that I think will be icy in the winter, and using the skills that I have as a climber and a hill walker to sort of navigate where those places are. So I guess adventure ice swimmer. I'm now an STA coach as well. So trying to introduce more people to the water. So I run a group, which is a free swimming group for mental well-being. And so really introducing new people to the water who never really considered swimming to be something for them. And it's all about just letting people who've never thought about it before and getting them to have a go. So that's kind of my potted history of where I'm at so far with the swimming that I do.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gilly. Right, I am going. Oh, we're just having some issues with the pictures, I think, with the screen share. So anybody who's having problems with it, if you go into view and then into gallery and see if that will take them off. If it doesn't and you can't see us speaking, then please just stick a message in the chat box and we'll just take the pictures down so that you can see all of our lovely mugs instead. So next little bit of our chat, we're going to have a bit of a serious talk about winter swimming. So when I'm with clients, I kind of talk to them about summer swimming. Our margins of error are like this. It's, you know, it's warm. We can get warm when we get out of the water. The water's a lot warmer. The weather's a lot better. You know, we've got big margins of error. When we come into winter, it gradually shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. We've got extra risks with the cold, with the weather, with colder water temperatures, all kinds of extra stuff. So we really want to go through with you some of the really key risks that you need to think about. Now, these, to be honest, all of these are relevant to summer swimming, but you've just got to be a little bit more switched on to them over the winter. So I'm going to hand over to Fenwick, and he's going to give you a quick whiz through. We're going to try and not petrify everybody and put everyone off. But I know when I do have this conversation with people, they sometimes go, oh, I'm not sure I want to come anymore. But we'll sort that out in a minute. Right, I'm going to take the pictures off because loads of people can't see our glorious faces. I shall stop the screen share. Cha-ching, is that better? You should be able to see us all now. Go for it, Fen. Sweet. What do I need to think about when I'm swimming over winter?
Well, there is quite a big list, and of course, we like like what you pointed out, we don't want to go into some of the darker stuff, but the things that we need to think about is straight off is the gear that we take with us. I know that we are going to, after this little bit of chat, we are going to start going through some gear and kind of show you some of the stuff that all three of us have got. But some of the big things that we need to kind of be aware of is the complete change of swimming. It's no longer swimming as you think in the summer. There's quite a lot of things that we have to kind of change. And one of the first things that we normally get asked is, how far do you think I'll be able to swim, or about the temperature? And you've got to be aware that, you know, you'll be swimming less distance massively and spending a lot more time sitting on the side eating cake. Yeah, so some of the things that we need to be aware of is, well, first off is the coolant and how that we need to rewarm, and making sure that we take enough gear with us to actually rewarm. There's a couple of downsides, and I will be in a moment. I'm going to hand over to Gilly with a little bit of the hypothermia. But one of the first things that we kind of experience with going into the colder water is that cold water shock response, that transitory sort of response that we get. And it's something that one of the things that you'll notice is that gasp reflex, and that is something that is actually very, very easy to notice, because it's a lot different from, and you can actually feel this from 15 degrees and down in the temperature of the waters. But the cold water shock response is something that quite a lot of people actually they don't listen to their bodies and they don't really understand it. It is a stressor response. It's something that we can actually manage, and we manage it through acclimatization, a step-by-step process of going into the water and cooling. Some of the things that can actually help with that is actually getting the water on us, and actually getting the water onto our face as well. Then you're looking into the cranial nerves in the face. But when it comes down to getting into the water, we need to make sure that we are in the right gear as well. So we're not wearing things that are too tight. So a wetsuit that is proper fitting, a neoprene suit that is not like a kayak and surf and sailing sort of suit that isn't going to be fitting nice and snug onto the skin. So these sort of things can actually help with that first sort of transition going into the water, is having the correct gear, wearing it. I actually tell a few of my guys that come along and do some of the swims as well, but they turn up with like baggy sort of swim shorts you'd see in a swimming pool, and I always encourage them to wear jammers. And then you know, ladies, you always got the best sort of like swimming costumes on, and no problems with that. But yeah, so it is wearing the right gear going into the water. So I'm going to pass over to, because this is one of the things that Gilly wanted to kind of cover as well, is the hypothermia. It's something that really isn't talked about enough. Go for it, Gilly.
Oh, so I just wanted to, like, Fenwick and I were talking about basically the fact that for this talk tonight, there is just so much information that we could talk about. I think Fenwick and I could talk for like an hour easily about just kind of ice holes.
Can I just interrupt? We had a pre-chat on this, which took a long time. These two have had another chat this afternoon. So you're getting the proper highlights. There is a lot more. Carry on, Gilly.
So basically, because I'm running quite a lot of really open entry level, what's it going to be like for your first season of winter dipping or swimming, I just think it's probably quite good in the short period of time that we have this evening, just to talk a little bit about hypothermia. Now, there's loads of information online, so I'm just going to give you the really high level stuff, and Fenwick, feel free, and Suzie, to chip in. But basically, our normal body temperatures are at about 37 degrees, and hypothermia will start to kick in at about 35 degrees, and severe hypothermia is about 30 degrees. So when we're getting out of the water, it's really important to get dressed quickly, but also to remember that when we're in the water, our bodies are going to be losing heat at about 20 to 30 times quicker than if we were just outside. So although the water might still be 12 degrees, that's not the same as 12 degrees in the air. So when you get the dog walkers at the side going, oh, 12 degrees, that's not bad, you're actually really sinking that quite quickly. And it's really important to get out of the water way before you start to shiver, because your body is still going to cool down when you get out of the water. So the signs of like shivering and slow speech and confusion and having a low level of response, if those things are happening in the water, you really have to get out of the water. And you want to be, like as Suzie said, that margin of error from this point onwards in the year, it's really critical to understand what those first small signs are. And they will be different for everyone. And it's really important to learn what your sort of signs are, Yeah.
So,
carry on. Yeah.
No, go on. I was just going to add, because I think quite a lot of people will straight away then start, our natural question is, right, so what are the signs and sort of things that are to come out of the water? And And the shivers are quite actually a really important one. If you start shivering in the water, that's yeah, it's a big sign to out you get. But also there's a if you get like a higher muscle tone in the body, which is it still classes as like a shiver response as well. And so that's tightness of the muscles, tightness of the hands, and numb fingers, numb toes, slurred speech, tightness of the muscles in the face, which you might start to talk about right this. And but also, you know, you think about, you know, when you start getting these sort of responses where you can't actually bend your hands, claw hands, and feeling quite numb in your feet and your hands, and you've got to remember you've got to get out of the water and actually get yourself and manage yourself and get yourself changed. Some people actually don't get some of those responses straight off, and one of the things to be aware of. When we start talking about cooling and our body's starting to cool and get to the state where our bodies react in that sort of sense, it is important to get out before then. But there is some people actually can actually stay in the water a little bit and get the most mildest of responses. And I suppose really the biggest sort of directive on this is start at the bottom, work on very small amounts and work up if that's what you're wanting to do. But be very careful on that, because when it comes down to getting into the water and swimming, and let's say for an example, you swim once, you're okay, you do 8 minutes in the water, you feel great. The next time you go back to the water, you do the same length of time, but the temperature dropped, all right? You find that most likely you will get some sort of shiver response, or you might get a response where your body gets a bit cold on the fingers, toes, numbness. Use them signals, because that's you getting to that threshold. That's you getting to a point where your body tells you that is where your threshold is, and it's important to try and jump out just before then. So I mean, really, after like before 10 minutes, you're not really going to experience like a huge amount of deep body cooling. But with people, we talked about this quite a bit, me and Gilly, and about the fact, for example, someone actually came to me and said that they didn't do too well on a swim. They were under 10 minutes and it was quite cold. Normally they do all right. But a week later, they got COVID, and it was like a build-up. They were already depleted of energy, so therefore, it doesn't matter how long they were in for. That maximum sort of stressor on the body actually pushed them just a little bit over the edge. So it's really important to kind of monitor ourselves and make sure that we are fitting well before we start doing this sort of thing, because we are actually pushing our bodies quite a lot. Now, without going a little bit too far into this, and actually, you know, talking a bit further about responses in this sort of state of like hypothermic, mild hypothermia is between 35 and 32, and below that, 32 to 28 is moderate, and then below that is the severe, is from 28 and below. When we start like that shiver response, you are literally around that sort of mild hypothermic sort of state. You can be, but we have got quite a few sort of very intelligent and very good people to listen to, like Professor Mike Tipton. He will school you quite a lot about the body, and those are the type of people who will actually give you a little bit of a good direction and understanding. And there is other people out there. There's more science, and like we were saying just before, we are a very small percentage through of understanding about the body going into cold water and cold water immersion. But yeah. So your question, Susie, was to first off was to ask us what should we be aware of, and when we want to climb down the temperature ladder. And I mean, I think one of the things that I'll just say once before we move on to a couple of others is hives, and basically looking after our skin. And when we come out of the cold water, we've got to bear in mind that our skin becomes a bit more delicate, and when we come to dry ourselves, it's worth pat drying. Don't rub, dry yourself. It's what we call as cold urticaria, and you can actually have a bit of headache, fever, but itchiness of the skin. and swelling, you can actually have that, and this can be from actually not drying yourself properly. So it's understandable when you come to do the winter swimming, you're gonna have to change your kit, get yourself a microfiber towel or something like that, something that's nice and soft, and it's going to be pat drying yourself. I know Gilly's gonna probably say another one, and I'll let her say it. Over to you, Gilly.
I want to do something a bit rude on screen now, but I'm not going
to. You what?
I just wanted to demonstrate Gilly's rude finger. Anyway, carry on with the discussion, Gilly.
I can talk about my. I guess, is that a safety thing? I suppose it is. It's certainly a consideration with the cold. So on top of what Fenwick was saying about the sort of hypothermia and that thing about, like, just to add to that, is that the other thing that happens when you're hypothermic is that your swim stroke diminishes. And we've seen it in our lake, is that you can have people that are out at the buoy and all of a sudden they're getting quite cold and they don't have the capacity to swim back. So it's just to really be aware of that, as winter gets, deeper in, to not be going out of your depth if this is your first season, and just being totally aware of what your body's doing. But the one thing I think that Suzie was going to say was that, so I get Raynaud's, and from my extensive research, I think that basically every fucker gets Raynaud's. I think everyone gets some sort of form of cold fingers, but I used to get Raynaud's really, really badly I used to curl when I was a youth in Scotland. It's a little tip that nobody knows about. And I used to get Raynaud's in my hands, in my knees, and in my toes. My Raynaud's has got so much better. My theory is that it's because I'm really flushing my circulation, and my vessel's quite hard in the winter swimming. I don't swim with gloves on in the winter unless I'm swimming in ice. And now I only get one really sweary finger, which makes an appearance. It makes its appearance in the summer in a warm lake versus in the winter as well. So luckily for me, the Raynaud's that I have is not painful. I know that for a lot of people, Raynaud's can be quite painful of some other underlying health conditions. So if you do find that you do have Raynaud's, my top tips would be, number one is wear gloves, neoprene gloves of some description. If that's your choice. For me, I like to know what my hands are doing in the water, like Fenwick was saying. So I don't want to wear gloves because I like to be able to have an application for me to see how my hands are feeling. The other thing for me that has really, really worked is hydration. So before I go swimming, I will always drink at least a pint of water, and also stress. So I know that if I have been very stressed with whatever beforehand, and I bring that stress to the lake, I will probably expect to have Raynaud's a bit worse. And interestingly, there was a time, and I know that stress definitely makes it worse, because there was a time that I came out of the water and I'd left I'd left the handbrake on my car, and my car had rolled across the road and into a wall, and I was a bit shocked. And all of a sudden, my Raynaud's went mental in all my hands. All my fingers. And it was definitely as a result of seeing my car basically written off on the other side of the wall. It just came up like anything. So water beforehand, gloves if you need to, and if you do suffer from Raynaud's a little bit, have a look at where your stress is at, and then you'll be able to know what to do. And for me, the Raynaud's goes away quite quickly, but my sweaty finger will definitely be making an appearance this winter.
Yeah. Something else, my best mate who I swim with most days now, she has Raynaud's, and she's found shaking her hands afterwards, so literally shaking the blood back into them really helps, and getting gloves on them as soon as you're out as well, so that they don't get any colder once they're out, has really helped her.
Drying them. It's something that a lot of winter swimmers forget, and they'll wander around still in the wet gear, getting out of the water, but stand around even for that just few seconds. The first thing you should be doing is dry yourself. Dry, if it's the hands that you get a problem with, dry them straight away. Dry the legs, you know, because actually, because then you're starting to look at this evaporated heat loss, and it just extends it. And so, you know, when we come out of the water, the first thing is dry yourself. Stick a little towel inside your robe. It's a good little hack for you. But oh, where's the screen gone? Oh God, where's it gone? Oh, there it is.
Oh.
I was like, panic. But yeah, I mean, so, some of the like real good positives of like you know, of coming through into like the cold water is like you're meeting new like-minded crazy friends, and the community of the winter swimming, and even just outdoor swimming community is beautiful. People are so lovely, so just everyone wants to be your best friend, and everyone wants to swim with them as well. You know, it's quite special when it comes down to the community. This last few years, especially the last 2 years over like lockdown and stuff, and doing little talks and stuff like that, I've made so many nice new mates that I want to go and have a swim with, and you know, it is pretty special. So I mean, I think for me that was probably one of the best things. And me being an open water lifeguard and running my business where I see so many swimmers come through, and I watch sitting on my paddleboard. I will sit and watch my swimmers who I've just taught and brought in, and they swim next to each other, and then they start talking. And then the next thing I see them online posting pictures of them swimming somewhere else. That's what it's all about. It's such a beautiful thing to watch and witness. And on top of that, making sure that, you know, the knowledge and understanding that they've got a good head on their shoulders to continue what they're doing, and they're most likely going to pass that on to someone else as well. And it is lovely. It's a fantastic part. But yeah, I mean, there is this multi-layered buzz of like, I mean, Suzie just described as well quite well of that buzz and that kick that you get out of it. It's multi-layered. It's like it's not like swimming in the summer. You get a buzz and a kick, and with a bit of anxiety, you know, before you get in sometimes, and that's quite normal for most winter swimmers. Doesn't matter how hard you look.
I think the conversation I have from now, every time I swim with somebody, we stand on the shore and go, why are we doing this? What are we doing? Why are we getting in? Standing up knee, then to crotch and going, it's really cold. Why are we doing it? But we know once we've done it, it's amazing. And once we're in, it's great. And it's been the most amazing experience. Yeah.
That head that just gets in the way, it is quite normal. And it is quite normal for a lot of swimmers. And this is something massively to bear in mind as well. There's days that you will approach the water, because you will approach the water with a different head on your shoulders every single time. Doesn't matter what you think, you will definitely approach the water differently every time. But not only that, you approach the water with a different body every single time. And going back to what Gilly was saying, and I think you mentioned as well with the hydration. Hydration is huge. It's huge. So, I mean, the two core things with the breathing and hydration, and then you're onto these small sort of variables with like sleep, stress. Well, stress is quite a big one as well. Fuel. They're all quite important, really, and they all pretty much sit in the same bubble. You know, so yeah, there's quite a few things to bear in mind when it comes down to that. Personally, I mean, I will just say this out now. Like, there is many times throughout the winter that I will approach the water, and I'll probably, for the first few days, I'll probably do my really good swims, and then other days I'll come up and I'll be like, I'll get in and I'll probably do about 100 meters and like not do very far at all, and that's just because my head's not in that right place. I might be just looking for the dip and just looking for that buzz and that release, that mental sort of like switch off. But yeah, it's different all the time. It's a very special part about it, actually. I think, I mean, my winter swimming has progressed very, very quickly with from where I was at, and I never thought that I would end up being I mean, I would have just laughed at myself massively and probably pushed myself into the water if I'd said I'm aiming for such a big distance in 0.2, 0.3 of a degree. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'll always carry on doing until the day that I can't get to the water.
Amazing. Right, so we've done our kind of scary safety bit. So I think in summary, what that's told me is you've got to listen to your body. So every body is different, every day is different. So how you feel every day is going to be different. Learn what your signs and symptoms are to get out. I always advise people to, whether it's winter or summer, get out feeling like you could have done more, because then you know that you're still safe. So if you feel like you've got out and you're like absolutely broken, you've got to bear in mind that you've also got to be getting changed and maybe getting yourself driven somewhere, or get to work or something. So really take into account all of that stuff as well. Right. So we've done the scary bit. I don't think we've managed to lose anybody out of that. So Gilly, I'm going to pass over to you to talk about the amazing things. The why do we do this and what the great bits are about it.
Yeah, why do we do it? It's because we get to be half naked in the middle of winter, telling every single dog walker that comes along that, yes, it's cold. And
no, it's not cold.
Yes, we're getting cold and all the rest of it. So, so for me, basically, and I think this is the same for everyone in the winter skins, is that there's sort of 3 levels to it. You're doing it for the cold, and that cold, I certainly swim a lot more in the winter than I do in the summer. In the summer, there'll be weeks, that I won't swim, and in the winter I'll swim 4 or 5 times in the week, easily from now on. So there's that cold connection. The other reason that I swim, and I think this is true for communities across the world, is that we swim for that nature connection. So maybe just seeing like the seasons, unfolding, and to have a really grounding experience of being off scenes, just submerged in nature. And then I think the third thing for everyone is for that connection, that connection to other people and to ourselves and to our tribe that we found. Because as Suzie said earlier, it still seems to be quite a new and quirky tribe or community to be involved with. And I think one of the beautiful benefits or joys that's happened in lockdown is that because pools have been closed, lots of pool swimmers who really wanted to carry on swimming were forced, for want of a better word, to find bodies of water near them that they could swim in there, and get their training in that way. But what you miss at the pool is that cold, and you miss that connection to nature and those seasons unfold. So I think those 3 things, certainly for me and a lot of the people that I swim with, reasons why. The seasons change, and there's something quite comforting about seeing the seasons change, and there is a very beautiful pattern to life that we often don't notice when we're stuck inside our boxes, on a screen. And especially if you have a place that you can swim at regularly, and you can really watch the same alder tree grow its leaves in summer, and then in autumn the leaves drop, and then come winter it's totally barren. There's something quite nice about that cycle, which is quite comforting. So I think that's the kind of broader picture of why we swim. But I'm fairly sure that everyone on this call will know that there are just numerous benefits to cold, and why cold is important. And lots of people come to the cold via Wim Hof and wanting to embrace the cold in that way. Lots of people find the cold from just giving it a go and slipping off their wetsuit and getting into the water. But I don't know if it would be helpful, Suzie, shall I go over some of the reasons why the cold is beneficial for us?
Yeah, totally, go for it.
So I got asked this just the other day of how many times do you need to be to get like, you know, attenuated to the cold. And you really need only about 6 swims in about 14 degrees and under in sort of quick succession to really get your brain sort of reprogrammed into knowing that this is a thing which is safe and it's going to be fine. But for me, and this has certainly been borne out by my own experience, and now science is really catching up for all swimmers, is that the cold is really amazing for flushing our circulation. So it's really good for like lymphatic drainage. It's really good for flushing out of those toxins. You know, if you live in Scotland, everyone knows about like the loony duke that happens on New Year's Day, and there's a reason why people feel wildly great about that after a party at Hogmanay, is it just flushes everything out. The other thing that I think most cold water swimmers will sort of attest to is the fact that it's really good for your metabolism and for sort of the fat burning mechanisms of that. That's why everyone loves eating all the cake afterwards, because it really does really boost your metabolism. I think the third thing for me, and certainly all the swimmers that I swim with, and why it's been so powerful in a global pandemic, has been that it's really amazing for anxiety and depression. There's been loads of studies that it's now as beneficial as some antidepressants, and there's loads of research about that to do with it reducing inflammation in our bodies. And there's tons and tons of research about that now. The other thing is it's really good for boosting our sort of libido and our self-esteem. And the reason for that is that it really pushes our sort of estrogen and testosterone levels up. So we feel, you know, good about ourselves. It boosts our immune systems. I certainly know that since I've started cold water swimming in winter up here, and bearing in mind I used to be wrapped in down or wool 365 days of the year, I have never had a cold. You know, or if I do get a little bit of a sniffle, it goes almost as quickly as it's come. I don't know if you guys have felt the same way about that. I'm
gonna contradict this. So there's no, not in a bad way, because this is the whole thing, and this is what I find so interesting about it, that everybody's so different. So I've made myself quite poorly when I've been on the edge of a cold, or I've had a cold and then pushed it too far, both in summer and winter. You know, I've done this at all times of year when I've carried on swimming through it, and the kind of shock on my immune system has been too great, and it's actually made me more poorly. But I know there are others that go, no, I'm good with it, and it's made me feel better. However, I think I should qualify, I have 2 kids, so I am also prone to all manner of gross things ending up in my house.
Yeah,
I think the
maybe
one
that's
thing,
just sort of a factor.
I think there's a thing which is quite important to remember if there's lots of people on here and it's like maybe their first or second winter season, is that it can make you quite tired, because that coldness that you get first thing in the morning can then make you quite sleepy for the rest of the day, and that's quite normal. But over time your body does get used to that. But I think it's really important to make that wise choice when you're down at the lake, to go, okay, today I'm feeling like I just want to have a dip. And I mean, I've turned up at the lake before and been like, I just don't feel it today. You know, even though I never regret a swim, there's been 3 times in my, you know, 8 years or whatever that I've just gone, I don't feel it today. And I think
one of the pictures that was on the slides was me pulling a face, and I've got my feet in, but I didn't get in because I wasn't feeling right, so I didn't go. Yeah,
exactly.
It happens more often for a lot of swimmers, like I was saying before, arriving with a different body each time. But yeah, it is quite something what it actually does on the positive sort of side though. I'm in massive need of that release and getting into the water. It's beautiful. Like,
there's also there's loads of studies now about how cold water specifically is really amazing for you know, the menopause. There's a study now with Cambridge University about how it might be able to sort of stem the onset of dementia, because it's you know, to really slow that neurodegeneration down. And there's a chap that I follow on Instagram, and his podcast is really amazing, and I know that the link will be in the talk notes afterwards, who's a neuroscientist over at University, and talking a cold for various different things to do with neuroscience and how to really sort of body hack using the cold. And so I think that for a lot of people, it's like not just about the swimming bit. You know, you can still get benefits by not being an amazing swimmer and just getting into the cold for that cold water experience, just bobbing around for 2 minutes. And you only need 2 minutes to have the benefits to all of those things. It's not a case of if you stay in for 20 minutes at 5 degrees, you're going to be even more charged. Use 2 minutes. Sorry, Fenwick.
One of the things that I've been like really kind of researching and actually looking after a few clients on is with people who, one, have had a bit of a rough time mentally, and the other one is the fibromyalgia, and basically I'm going to use my mum as an example. So my mum's been suffering with fibro, and I managed to actually convince her. It's taken us a while to convince her, but I convinced her to actually get into the water this season gone, and she found it absolutely like amazing. But she was absolutely done in afterwards, bless her. But the other person, I mean, she has actually said that, you know, she's going to return back, and she will actually get herself back in, because she did notice a bit of a change in release and for the pain level that she goes through. But I've got another person that's actually a very interesting sort of she's a little bit further on with the pain. She gets a lot more pain, and our reactions to the being in the water was unreal. I mean, at first it was quite intense for her, and then she's built it up, and bless her, she needs to come back in soon, because she's been off it for about 5 weeks or so. But the result from her being in the water, from experiencing a large amount of pain through this like fibromyalgia, and the result that she's getting from it is unreal, and I'm so proud of her. But it's all to do with just getting that hydrostatic pressure and that cooling, and it's reduced that inflammation, but also many other things that we can't really kind of go into at the moment. But yeah, the positives and the sort of medicated sort of side of it is unreal. But we are still like a very small percentage through with science, which is one quite exciting. It's quite exciting. But the other side is, yeah, it's got its dark side. but yeah, at the moment, I think the positives still outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more positive stuff to come. I know, I'm sure you guys will have done, and probably some other people that were on here. There were lots and lots of webinars with the likes of Mike Tipton and Heather Massey on last year, and the kind of resounding thing they were saying was, we've got all of this research done already, but there is so much more to do, so much more that needs to be funded, particularly looking at mental health and things like fibro. And a lady's mentioned that she has lupus in the chat. She said that's really helped her. Loads more work needs to be done on that to try and, you know, get to the actual nub of what it is that helps, so that we can then manage it better and make sure that we're helping people in the best possible way. So we've done lots and lots of stuff on the positive.
Just quickly,
yeah,
this book.
Oh yes. Yeah,
this book only came out this year. For anyone that's into more the sort of blue, you know, nature connection, the biophilia, the sort of, you know, why being connected to nature for vitality and for meaningfulness and for psychological well-being. This book's come out. If anyone's read it, it'll again be in the notes along with the Huberman Lab podcasts. It's a great book. and it explains about why blue spaces are so powerful for us. And then at the back of the book, it's got loads of mindfulness practices. So if any of you are familiar with meditation or mindfulness, which is this book here, this book is a sort of swimmer's version of this book. And so they're both going to be in the notes, and they're both really, if anyone else is, you know, interested in that, obviously there is a simple fun factor to swimming as well. But if you want to get more into the sort of therapeutic side, then these two books are totally amazing, and come really from a very centered place of knowledge. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Right, we're kind of on time.
We're not on time.
Yeah, no, wrote it down. We're kind of on time. So we're going to have a quick, right, we've got 5 minutes on kit. We've already covered a bit of it. We've talked about some of it. Do you know what? I'm going to go straight in and say, what is your favourite is the most essential piece of winter swim kit?
Oh, right, okay.
It's going to be a demo.
I've got it.
And it's got his.
Is it your axe?
Do you know what? Can I have two?
Yeah, go on.
Right. So, my mates, my favourite mates, these are beasts. You can just see them on the camera. Absolutely lovely. They've even got a little cuddle part for my cheek afterwards when I'm going out the water and I sit like this.
Are they army surplus mittens?
Yes, they are.
They just look like they're Muppets.
Actually, do you know what? I should turn off my screen at the back and show them properly. I'll work out how to do that now. Yeah, so the mates, and of course my axe. Of course my axe.
Of course his axe. So I'm going to go next because I'm wearing mine. So there is tons of potential winter kit. As I think I've mentioned, I wear a ton of neoprene in the winter sometimes if I want to swim any distance. But my absolute essentials that I cannot cope with is neoprene on my hands and feet. So these bad boys are, I think they're 7mm surf mittens. They're amazing. I can swim for a long time in these, and they just stop my hands getting cold. I can't, unlike Gilly and Fenwick, I can't cope without gloves. The pain is too intense on my hands when I get in. It means that I get out within a couple of minutes, but actually my body can cope with a little bit longer than that. So these crabby bad boys are my favourites. Go on, Gilly.
So my essential piece of swim kit, there's two, which is this. This is like an advert or something. This is Bengal spice tea. It's got loads of ginger and cardamom and everything. And Fenwick,
I'm drinking.
Ice swimming with Fenwick, introduced him to them, and now I order them in like boxes 12 at a time.
Absolute game change. Although I think I destroy it a little bit. I always get wrong off Gilly for this because I actually double up on the tea bags and I put milk and honey in.
So it's a Bengal spice celestial tea bags, and I have it in a cup like this so you can keep your hands warm, but I also take another cup to keep warm stuff. And then my other, and I'm just going to do this now because I know that we probably don't have time. This is my ice axe that I use for in winter. This is a peg hammer. It's got a nice blunt end and it's got a wee sharp end. This is an ice axe, which looks really amazing for photographs, but is 100% rubbish for making an ice hole, because ice axes are designed to make a wee small hole into a piece of ice so you can hang your body on. So that is my tool of choice. Either that or you rent one from Screwfix for about £20 and you have it for a week and then you can go and smash out some big trails somewhere else. So that's my two top tips there.
I think there's a risk Fenwick's going to pass out from heat stroke in a minute, given that I've seen what he's put on.
There you go. There he is.
So it's the kind of kit over winter isn't just about what we wear when we swim. There's so much more to think about. So you've got to be so much more prepared. You've got to think about how you're staying warm before you swim, how you're staying warmish while you're in the water, or if you're protecting your extremities while you're in the water. And then you've got to think about the after bit. So that after bit where you're going to be cold, your body temperature is going to carry on dropping after you get out. So there is this risk that you're going to get colder whilst you're trying to get dressed. Now I have I have various items that I take out with me. My bag over winter is massive of the stuff I take. Fen is beautifully demonstrating the mighty Selk bag, which is basically just an all-in-one walk aroundable in sleeping bag, which I think Gilly and I are both quite jealous of.
I'm just,
What else have you got on?
Not that big enough
And his
for me.
massive hat.
There you go.
How long have we got until Fenwick passes out from heat stroke?
Someone's just asked
Boiling.
someone's just asked there if mitts are better than gloves, and I think that I think it's just a personal choice. I certainly really like mittens because I still like my skin like feeling warm beside each other. I find that gloves keep my fingers quite cold. So again, it's just a personal thing. My mittens, I've got separate bits inside them, but they're still all enclosed in something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking about
I'm a big mitten fan.
Thinking about them cold hands and numb fingers. You know, even after you've dried them, getting a big ski glove on like that does take quite some time. I see quite a lot of swimmers come out with some of these on and they go, yeah, that'll do. Yeah. But as long as you're covering your hands, I mean, mittens are quite a good go-to because they're a lot easier to get on. But I mean, we could actually go through like an insane amount of kit.
I'm not going to let you. You're just surrounded by kit, Fenwick.
I am just surrounded by kit. Giant socks that I can. I mean, these are ridiculously big.
Yeah, but essentially, what you need to think about when you get out is that because you're cold, your hands are not, you know, even if your hands aren't that cold, they're still going to be a bit numb. You're not going to be able to use them very well. So everything you need to put on afterwards needs to be loose, so it's easy to get on. Yeah. No jeans. Away from leggings, although I have a pair of leggings that do work post swim. But you know, big baggy stuff, big mittens, big easy to get on hats. The marvelous dry robe to go over the top of it all to keep all of the heat in even once you're fully clothed. I had an amazing picture of the three of us all in dry robes with like down jackets underneath. Because that's the look, you know, about 10 layers post swim.
There's a crazy amount of robes out there now. I mean, we could talk all night with the amount of robes that I've ever tried, but it's looking for something that's big. Like Susie's saying, we need something that's big, that's warm. Hell, you could get one of your big jackets at home and use that, but it's something that's going to be warm. There is like quite a lot of like sort of robes that are worth the money though. Like a lot of the robes are worth the money.
Absolutely.
And with that fleece lining inside, I mean, they're amazing. But yeah, I mean, there's things like these Selk bags, and then there's onesies. Just making sure that you're getting things that are like, I mean, this is huge on me. But
and I should qualify this here. Fenwick is massive. Fenwick is huge. I'm 6 foot. Fenwick's significantly bigger than me.
But the best thing about when you start getting your gear, you can start putting your badges on.
Right. Let's move on from kit. So we had some practical stuff to go through. We've probably covered quite a lot of it, to be honest. Have we talked about prepping for a winter swim?
Say again?
So how do you prepare for a winter swim, Fenwick?
So the day before, well, actually a good 2 days before I go for a winter swim, I actually start making sure that my hydration's up on point, a good night's sleep, checking my gear a good couple of times before I go out. If I don't have the right gear with us, I don't swim. But the preparation side is massively just making sure I've checked my gear a good couple of times before. I mean, for example, if I was going up to the lake and started doing like a long, if I'm determined to actually or mindset of going into doing like a longer swim, I would probably spend a little bit of time up there before I actually just jump straight in. And because one of my big things is calming myself before actually going in. quite often I do actually just sit about the water. I quite like it because it's part of the whole experience of being outdoors. And because it becomes a different realm when I come out the water afterwards. So I quite like enjoying just being around the water before I even go in. But yeah, massively, just making sure I've got all my the right gear with us.
So what else do you, so contemplating things like the weather, the water conditions, all that kind of stuff. Go on, do you want to cover that, Gilly?
Yeah, so being up here in the district, I am fully aware of how much the wind can strip the temperature off you, and it's the same across the UK. So the absolute number one thing that I look for is not rain or snow or anything, it's what is the wind doing. And if it's a northerly wind and it's blowing faster than 10 miles an hour in winter, because I don't swim in a wetsuit, I'm seriously going to consider what that's going to look like, or try to go to a more sheltered spot. And I can't overemphasize how important the wind is for winter. If it's raining and it's a southerly wind, that is hugely different from a sharp northerly wind blowing even a couple of miles an hour less. So I've got quite a lot of really amazing weather apps. Some of them I've paid for, but they have been really amazing for me. Check Mountain Weather if you guys are, if anyone's in a place where it's a bit more hilly. And really forecast the thing that I look for. And then for winter swimming, especially for swimming in the ice, I won't go to a place that I haven't already scoped out in summer. I know where all the endpoints are, and I will speak to. I'm part of a group up here who are all the local Cumbrian ice skaters. So in the depths of winter, I speak to them about where the ice is going to be deep and safe, and if they're going to ice skate in it, then I know that it's somewhere that I can put down an ice hole and that kind of thing. But there's I think I know that we were going to maybe talk about it, but the ice swimming is a really different proposition in terms of safety. And although the photographs of like people holding up like blocks of ice looks really cool, it's definitely something that needs to be treated with a lot of respect. And I've really badly sprained my ankle standing on 2 sheets of ice that just like slipped each other and went over backwards, sprained, blah blah blah. And you just don't want, you can risk assess all of that stuff, and you just need to be a bit safer about it. So
yeah, you just need to be.
But yeah, the wind's the biggest one for me. Win.
Yeah, I know. Well, this leads us kind of quite nicely onto the ice stuff, actually, to be fair, because I know my very first ever ice experience in a local reservoir, and I drove past and I was like, finally, we've got some ice. Me and a mate went down. We'd never done it before, just in our swimming costumes. I think we had gloves and shoes and stuff on. A local friend has actually just put exactly what I'm going to say in the chat box, and I didn't notice it at the time, but the following day, I think in the shower, I was like, why are my legs stinging so much? And I had probably hundreds of teeny tiny cuts and bruises on my thighs where I just moved the water aside with my legs, but because my skin was numb, I couldn't feel that it was cutting me. It was horrific. So now what I do is move everything with gloved hands, so my legs don't go straight into the ice. They just it gets pushed out of the way.
I think
everyone learns the hard way.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's like paper cuts, but you don't feel it because your skin's
I'm the same. I've times where I've been doing like ridiculous channels, or like been in there for such a long time, like spending a whole day up at the lake, and that the ice is pretty sharp, like. We're going back to that sort of like what you're doing to your body when you go into the cold water. You're making your skin a lot more sensitive as well, and then with that numbness on top of that, like Suzie was saying, there's a few things that people don't understand or see behind some of the photos that we might put up about us being in like ice holes and ice channels. There is quite a bit of preparation that goes into that, and there's a lot of different type of gear that we haven't covered either, and it is a different level when it comes down to those ice holes. And I mean, we get like 5.5, nearly 6 inch of ice at the lake. And no, I don't use chainsaws. It's all full power axe mode. But you know, there's actually a couple of people in here in the chat which I know. One guy, I think he might be here, but he is in the Yukon, and he has showed some pretty amazing sort of ice holes that they've been doing, and they are using like big chainsaws and stuff like that to get into there. In our country, we don't really need to use that sort of stuff. I mean, and you know, when we're talking about like ice sort of cutting ourselves, and like, you know, one of the things that I practice a lot is the precision of like actually cutting it. I mean, I use an axe because I prefer, but I experience with an axe. But smashing it up, you're making little bits, and it's taking that time to push it out of the way and underneath the ice and push it out of the way. And you see people in with the photographs of them in with loads of bits of ice, you know, like it's being aware that that ice will actually give you a little bit of a nick on the skin and stuff and disturb that skin a little bit. But yeah, swimming that realm of like ice swimming. Well, actually, ice swimming is 5 degrees and below. That's classed as ice swimming. But actually swimming in the ice, like with like a sheet of ice, like a lovely cold hat on top of the water, is a totally different level of ice swimming. It's adventure in with the ice. But yeah, it's
what we can do, Fen. So
yeah.
Fenwick and I are having another chat at the end of the month on the 29th of November, and we're going to cover some of that in our next
Sweet.
round of talk. So there'll be a link to that as well that comes around in the email afterwards. Yeah, we can do some more ice chatting there.
I've got a couple of videos up on the YouTube with the ice. I'm going to release another 2 this next month. So
we'll stick those on the email.
Sweet, and just I'm hoping to get finished the edits. It takes bloody ages.
There's some great ones up there. I had a good couple of hours flicking through them before the chat. It's very entertaining. Right, so we have got 15 minutes left. Right, we've got some questions that we were going to hammer through anyway.
Okay.
And then we've got a whole load of extra questions that have come up on the chat, which are great. We've covered the most essential piece of winter swim kit. We've ticked that off well and truly. Right, I'm going to start with the down one. Right, what's your worst ever winter swim experience or mistake that you've made?
I'll start with that one if you want. I basically got really bad after drop from a swim. I was in the water. The water was sub 10 and I stayed in just a little bit too long, and I think it's really easy in the winter to get a bit swept along with what everybody else is up to and just staying in, and you know, like you get to that point where you're like, oh, I feel kind of okay in the water, and that should be, you know, sounding alarm bells for you to get out. And I got out of the water and I started to feel really faint, and I basically was having I was definitely in that first steps of being hypothermic and having really, really bad afterdrop. And it was totally unpleasant, and I would definitely not want to have that experience again. So I think for me that was a learning, and if I had been swimming by myself and swimming that distance, it would have been quite different. So now if I'm swimming in a high up place, having an adventure swim with ice, it's a really different experience for me. So I think for distance and for lake swims where it's cold, it's best to definitely not do them as solo swims, because if I had been by myself, I think it would have been a lot more serious.
Yeah.
So
we were going to chat. We were going to try and chat a little bit about. We were going to try and chat a little bit about solo versus kind of group swimming tonight, but we've run out of time really to cover that. But yes, something to really, really think about. So my worst experience was very similar to Gilly's. It was actually a New Year's Day dip, and I think I was sober. It was lunchtime-ish, but I was very much hungover. You know, alcohol really messes with your ability to manage your body temperature. and went and had a swim with a really big bunch of mates. Because we were with friends, I got a little bit distracted, and I just had horrific after drop when we got out. I was violently shaking. Thankfully my husband had come down with us so he could drive me home, but it was not a pretty experience. I learned very rapidly from that. Yeah, go on, Fen.
It's quite heavy when you experience something, when you experience that level. Like I've got two. I'll give one brief one. Probably the worst one. So one of my challenges was to do a cross lake channel. So crossing the entire lake via ice channel, and one of my practices kind of went a little bit wrong, and it was to do with falling through the ice. But one of my parts of my gear, because to make it easier, but there was like sections of the ice that would break previous. One of the sections that I'd actually went up to and checked the thickness. It basically got us through the ice. I went in, and the bit of safety equipment that I had malfunctioned. Basically, it was ice prongs that were actually tied to us, and the tie had come off, and I had actually lost them. So it ended up me being in there for a lot longer, and I managed to get out and get back. But because of the state and everything and the duration, I ended up being in a bit of a bad state with the hypothermic sort of state. And it wasn't the greatest sort of setup, because my person who was on the safety couldn't get to me. And of course his panic didn't help. And I think because it was his second winter through helping us, it was quite serious. But that was one. The other one was to do with going in too long and pushing too hard, and made a channel, swam 2K, and at one very slight little response of my head, I instantly went, how am I feeling? I'm actually feeling okay. And I actually continued on. And that was a big mistake. I ended up carrying on. And when I came out, I was in a really bad state, like literally sickness and wanting to close my eyes. I was in a really bad state, and it was just because I pushed myself a little bit too far that day. I wasn't listening to my body enough. But a couple of scary moments, definitely.
Yeah, I think proof there that we all make mistakes from time to time, and we've all learned from them. We all learn from mistakes throughout our lives. It's a really important thing to do, is to go, okay, I made that error, but now I know better for next time, and I know not to take that risk next time. So on the other side to that, what's your most memorable or special winter swim?
Oh, blimey.
I know there's too many, isn't there? So I have one. I have many, but the one I'm going to talk about today. So I swim. I tend to swim very early morning because it works around family life. So we'll often go out at kind of 6:30 in the morning. So this time of year, well, the morning's got a little bit lighter for a while, but over winter it's dark when we go and swim. And there's a beautiful reservoir near us that has very little light pollution. There's no lights around it. It's absolutely stunning. And we went in, and we were going to go in and have a proper head down swim. And I got there, the moon was out, the stars was out. It was just the most amazing experience. My mate went and swam. She swam across, did a lap and back as we normally would. It takes about 10 minutes. And I just bobbed about, floated on my back for a bit, stared at the stars, and just thought, we are all just made of star stuff, aren't we? We are all the elements of the universe. It was the most magical, very early morning. It could have been the middle of the night, but it was a very early morning. That is how to set yourself up for a day.
I know mine. I know one of the first things I would definitely like to say. It was me with Moona on top of it. And I think, Suzie, if you find that picture of me and Moona, and the ice is like totally flat. It's like
I'll see if I can ping it up.
Yeah, but that swim, that ice hole for me was just it was unbelievably breathtaking because we had so much snowfall, and then it froze. We got to like -15, and then it's more snow down, and then it froze on top again. So what you have is a build up, and it just basically gets thicker and thicker. And it got to like 5-inch thick, but also it was on the top. It was flat, so smooth and milky sort of color. And the reflections of the trees on the ice, and then there was a layer of water on top of there as well. So when you were walking across it, it would ripple. And then because of the day with the sun, and it was just, I couldn't believe how nice it really was. And I spent the whole day up there cutting these perfectly shaped sort of ice holes, and Muna was just loving running around watching us, and it's just unreal. I mean, it was so still as well. There was hardly any wind as well, so it was quite. And then the wind did pick up. I do remember, because I did have to leave because I was starting to get a lot colder because I did like
wind. Honestly, wind is the winter killer, isn't it? Wind is awful. I feel like we should clarify. Muna is Fenwick's beautiful dog.
She's
many of his adventures.
Very, very, very special time that was, and Muna did a really good job, and she runs up and grabs the ice in her mouth and runs off and takes it out the water for us.
Amazing. Go on, Gilly, have you managed to think of one?
Well, I don't know. I was really lucky last winter because every swim that I did in January for like swimming every day was under 5, and I managed to make so many different ice holes, and I think possibly and then filming the body of water film, we went to some really amazing locations for that. But I think just springing to mind probably the film, in fact you could put it into the link here, would be the Zero film, and that day was just exceptional, like going up to this body of really like thick frozen body of water up in the hills just near Kendal, and carving a perfectly round ice hole. I've never seen icicles like it, and it was like I was in a dream. And I think that days like that and learning how to do that safely are just such an amazing gift. So that would definitely be my my quick think about. That's the one. Yeah, that top.
Is it that one? Yeah.
that top left photograph.
Yeah.
Of that day, and then the top right one is from Body of Water, and that was a nice channel that I carved up in Scotland, in fact. So I think that those are, but to be honest, every day in winter is just an absolute, it's a gem, and I love taking new people to the water and
that's beautiful, Muna.
So Muna. I don't know, Suzie, now if we've not got much time, I noticed that there were a few questions on there that I could just whiz through them now.
Do you know what, we've got loads. So I'm going to fire some at you. I'm going to give you them individually. We're not all going to answer them.
Okay.
All right, actually, top winter cake.
Oh, I would actually
one word.
One word.
Flapjack.
Cake. No, actually, I like the Russian cake, but it's a velvet cake. Well, no carrot cake, no chocolate cake.
Just all the cake.
All of the cake.
Cake, pie, sausage roll, pasty.
Banana bread, definitely.
Banana bread.
Chocolate brownie. I think it's my go-to thing. Chocolate brownie or white brownie. Yeah. Or whitey, sorry.
This was a good one. And why be hydrated before a swim?
I think
and well fed.
That question that was put up there was basically, it's around the sort of Raynaud's. It is affected with whether you're hydrated or not. And I just think that you're burning quite a lot of calories when you're in the water, not only in your body but in your brain. Our brains use 20% of our calories in the day, and I think it's just important to keep that hydration up.
Yeah, and also. There's an effect called, anyone who's swum outside will notice this, probably even notice in the pool, something called cold water diuresis, and the hydrostatic pressure of water being on your body makes you wee. So you wee more when you're in water and when you're cold. So making sure that you're hydrated beforehand is really important, so that any dehydration isn't worse whilst you're swimming.
And also the release of dopamine makes you want to urinate as well. And when we're in the water, we're obviously releasing quite a lot of dopamine. So yeah, just drink a bit of water before you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting our hydration 48 hours before a swim, which is ideal. That's the good hydration tip. But I think of the hydration as like the oil and system. It helps things move. It helps with quite a lot. So hydration will massively give you a good sort of balance with those reactions of going in and management. So yeah, the oiling of the system. So hydration is good for thinking as well, so you'll think a lot quicker and about your responses and understand about how you're feeling that day.
Yeah. Right, I'm gonna jump this one in, which has just come in, but it's a really important one. Ease into the water or jump in.
Oh. I might have to start in there. One of the big things that I teach is about everything is slow. Everything is slow. Everything that you do, getting yourself sorted, thinking about you doing the ritual, going in slow, swimming slow at first, getting yourself breathing, but coming out slow. The only thing that you do quick is actually getting yourself dried and getting yourself changing into a cocoon. But when it comes down to jumping in, I mean, I must admit, with all the conditioning and ability to go down a lower temperature, I was seen at diving in and jumping in one of my winter events, and I was the only person doing it. But I was quite well conditioned to do it. Jumping in, you've got to think about those big changes in the body, and it comes to the cold water shock response.
Even in summer, jumping in straight off, bad idea. Yeah, by all means, go in and get your body acclimatized and get used to it, and then go and jump off something or dive off something or whatever. But so important not to just jump straight in.
High risk on the jumping in.
Yeah.
Suzie, I saw that somebody put a wee question there about thermometers, and I was going to answer that question earlier, but I haven't.
Go for it.
We've sort of shot past it, but I think it's important. Basically, all thermometers will have a variance in degrees, just like a lot of other things. And I think the most important thing is to keep using the thermometer that you're going to use throughout winter, and don't rely on someone else's thermometer. So that most thermometers that are bought in aquariums can vary by anything up to like 2.5 degrees. So what I've done in the winters up till now is I bought 3 cheap fish thermometers, stuck them on a piece of wood, and then basically you take the average of all 3. But what I did 2 years ago was it was quite expensive, it was about 35 quid. I bought a ShAFF thermometer. It's waterproof, it's far more accurate because it's far more accurate, and it means that you don't have to fart around with buying loads of different sort of disposable thermometers, and it is really interesting to chart what your body is doing in the water to the temperature that it is reflecting, because if you're on your periods or you haven't slept very well, 4 degrees, 5 degrees will feel completely different to if you slept well and you're hydrated and blah, blah, blah. So a good ShAFF thermometer would be my top tip if you can afford it. And if not, then get 2 or 3 at the same time and chuck them on there before.
Awesome. Right, I think I'm going to come to a close on the questions because we've got quite a lot more. We could carry on for another hour if we wanted to, but we're not going to, because frankly I think everyone wants to go to bed. But what we'll try and do, we've got all these questions written down, so we'll go through them and try and answer some of them as best we can, or send links to stuff that you can read up on as well, because there's quite a lot of some quite detailed questions in there as well that we want to get back to you on. So
I don't know if anyone wants to send us any really important sort of questions. If anyone wants to if they've got something that urgently want to be answered, send us a message on Instagram, and I'm happy to.
If anyone's got questions to do,
half an hour after this session.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm just going to now say thank you for an awesome hour and a half of chat. It's safe to say we could have done a whole day on this, guys, couldn't we? Really. So thank you, Gilly. Thank you, Fenwick. Thanks, Matt and Anna, for having us. It was amazing.